Hello everyone and welcome on in to the next video here in survey. So in this video we're going to be going deeper into the cardiovascular system. So in the last video we went over the lymphatic system, which is a kind of an aside, and then before that we talked about the blood. So now we're going to be going into the major pump of your cardiovascular system, and that is your heart. So in this video we're going to go over the structures of the heart and identify the key structures, and so we can understand their function. In the video after this we're going to have a specific video going over the pathway blood takes through the heart, so we have a clear understanding of that and you can diagram out that yourself. And then we're going to be going into the major blood vessels and things like that in the following video. So this is our little classroom model of the heart that we have here. So I did this so we can see kind of a 3D representation. So starting out here we have the anterior side of the heart. Now remember, the hardest thing with the heart is understanding its sidedness, so left and right. It's all about in the individual, not you, the observer. So here, the left side of the heart and the right side, the labels on these models are going to be a little backwards when you think about it. But when you put the heart in an individual, it's a little different. So the heart, about right here in the thoracic cavity, and the apex or the tip of the heart is pointing towards the left hip. So it crowds the left area of the lungs a little bit. So it gives you 2 lobes in the left lung and 3 lobes in the right lung. So it does point a little bit to the left right there. And so you can see all of these valves, not valves, these vessels coming in and out of the heart here. We're going to be talking about those. There you can see the trachea going down behind it. And then if you open up and look inside the heart, you can see the valves then that separate the 2 chambers. Well, there's 4 chambers, 2 chambers on each side, and then a couple valves there for exiting the heart. So that's going to be the focus today. We'll refer back to this video if we have to see a structure or something like that, but this just helps us see a 3D representation of the heart. Alrighty, let's go down here now. So what we're going to do, I took 2 images of that model and put a whole bunch of lines on it for us to look at and label, both labeling some deep internal structures here for focusing on the valves, and then up here for looking more at surface anatomy and what's going on. So I'm starting out here, and let's use green because red on red doesn't work too well. I like to start out with just the major valve exiting the left side of the heart right here. So this is the aorta. So the first part of the aorta is called the ascending aorta right here, and then it goes around this little arch. This is called the aortic arch. Then behind the heart, you have the descending aorta, which goes down, or the thoracic aorta, down through the abdominal cavity, and so forth. There's a little ligament here called the ligamentum arteriosum, which helps give some structural structure to this area and helps hold things together. Now there's 3 nubs that come out of the aortic arch right here. Again, we'll focus more on these in the vessels, but the first one is called the brachiocephalic right here, and it branches into the right subclavian and right common carotid. Then right here then would be the left common carotid, and then over here is the left subclavian, which then becomes the left brachial, and then goes down the arm. And so again, that's just the 3 first nubs coming out right there. Then all that blood goes to your system. It comes back from your system then via the inferior and the superior vena cavas, or cavae. So superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, sometimes just SVC and IVC here are used as labels. So they come in then into the right side of the heart, or the right atrium right here. So the atrium is the first receiving chamber of the heart. These little structures over here found on the right atrium and the left atrium over here would be the auricles, the little fat layer, and add a little bit area of stretch to the atria to allow them to bring in more blood. So superior and inferior vena cavas, and then they pump down into the blood, then comes through a valve inside here, which we'll talk about here in a second, and it gets into the next chamber, which is a ventricle, V for ventricles, excuse me. And so this is the right side, so that'd be the right ventricle. The right ventricle then pumps the blood out through the pulmonary valve, through the pulmonary trunk right here. And from the pulmonary trunk, it goes to the left, and over here, comes out and about and exits over here, the right and the left pulmonary arteries. So these are an artery, which is confusing because it's a blue vessel, but it's deoxygenated blood going away from the heart. And if a vessel goes away from the heart, it is called an artery. So if we're looking up here in this video, as we go behind the heart here, there's that left pulmonary artery. And as we spin the heart around here, you can see that right pulmonary artery coming out right there. Then this blood goes back to the lungs, gets reoxygenated, and comes back the pulmonary vein. So there is a right and left pulmonary vein that then bring things behind here. So I wrote behind down here because this is referring to the pulmonary vein, and this one would be the left. This one would be the right pulmonary vein. So this is the left pulmonary vein over here coming back. So this is bringing oxygenated blood back to the right side of the heart, or the right atrium right here. From the right atrium, pumps it down into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, it then pumps out the aorta and around. So there are some other parts here that we haven't talked about yet. There are two little branches right here that come out. So the heart needs a lot of blood too. So right here we have the left, and over here we have the right coronary arteries. The left coronary artery branches off right here and becomes what's called the circumflex artery. And then here, this becomes the anterior interventricular artery. So this is the interventricular septum right here that separates the two ventricles. And this artery is that interventricular artery, anterior one. There's a posterior one too. Down here, just forgot to label, this is the tip or the apex of the heart. Then down here for the right coronary artery has these branches down here. These are called the right marginal arteries. And there are some arteries on the back, but these are just the ones we're labeling on this one here. And then, of course, you need to drain the heart via veins. So over here, we have the great cardiac vein draining the heart. And then over here, there's a small cardiac vein. So small cardiac vein down here, which then drains. And then over here is the anterior cardiac vein. There's also a middle cardiac vein found on the posterior side as well. But don't worry too much about the drainage in there. Just wanted to go over a general overview here of that the heart does feed itself. All right, last image here is going into more of the internal structures and focusing on that. So I always like to imagine returning to the heart via the superior and inferior vena cavas in here. So we're coming back into that atrium, and this is the right atrium right here. So we're on the right side where the blood is returning. In that atrium, there are some muscles up here. These are called the pectinate muscles, which assist in contraction of that atrium. Then the blood comes through our first valve. There's no valve between the vena cava and the atria because pressure will just keep pushing that blood in. But here there is a valve down here. This first valve we have, it has 1, 2, 3 cusp on it. So this one is the tricuspid valve. So blood will come through that valve and into this chamber, which this chamber then is that right ventricle. You kind of see that V look in this right here. Now, if I erase some of this on here, we can look at these little tendons that help hold this valve open or close. Those tendons are called the chordae tendineae, and they're held in place, and they help the opening and closing of that valve via these little muscles right here called the papillary muscles. So contraction and relaxation of those muscles close this valve so that when your ventricles pump blood out, they don't pump it back into the atria. So that's that lub-dub sound you hear is one, the closing of these two valves, and then also the dub sound is the closing of the pulmonary and aortic valves in here as well. And then there are some little ridges and folds found in the ventricles right here, which help increase the surface area of blood being able to get in there. So being able to fill more blood into the ventricles is a really important thing. Hold on, making sure my pen doesn't die here again, because I think it is. And then so it can fill blood into those ventricles and then pump blood out. That is called the trabeculi carnii. Sorry for all the AE, the I words here. But then blood again is pumped out that pulmonary trunk, gets reoxygenated back into the lungs, comes back in the pulmonary veins and into the left atrium. From the left atrium, blood then goes through the next valve, which is the bicuspid valve, or also known as the mitral valve. That then comes down into the left ventricle, and then from the left ventricle, pumps out through the aortic valve, which you see as these dotted line labels up and on the inside here. So you got to look under the interventricular septum, which is labeled right here. So if we go back up to this video now, we can show that real quick where we look inside the heart here. And I think I angle the camera down just a little bit to try to show that valve. When we come around this side here, let's see if I do that. I think I look up and in. So when you look up and in right there you see that mitral valve, and up there you see the aortic valve. So the aortic and the pulmonary valves are called your semilunar valves, and the mitral and the tricuspid valve are known as your AV or atrioventricular valves. So it's up inside there. It's kind of hard to see. I couldn't take an image showing all of it. And then the last little three here are just showing the layers of the heart. So there's a connective tissue upon the heart. It's called the epicardium. The muscular layer is then called the myocardium, and the connective tissue layering around the inside is called the endocardium. So just going over the layers of the heart. Alrighty, and that was your little quick and dirty overview of all the structures and some of the functions of some of the important parts of the heart. Like I said, in the next video, we're going to do a key video focus on the pathways of blood through the heart. So it'll be a good refresher of a lot of these vessels and valves and chambers that we just talked about. But that's all I have for this one. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, but I hope you have a great rest of your day, and bye-bye.